visit Zambia. Everywhere you go, there's a nearest health provider. You don't need to stress cause you.
So good evening to you, our viewers. We're excited to be with you this evening on this platform to discuss an issue that is currently trending, and that is to do with vaccination. The coronavirus vaccine in particular. This program is being brought to you by MedSearch, which is a medical directory that helps you to access health information, health services, and health products. I should mention that MedSearch is a digital platform that allows you to interact with your health providers. You could actually download the MedSearch app, and using it, you'll be able to have access to different health services as it links you to health providers in terms of institutions, in terms of pharmacies, in terms of laboratories, and many other health providers. So I would advise you to get yourself the app. You could have it on your phone. You could equally access MedSearch on your laptop or any other digital device that you may have. So this evening we are going to have a discussion around vaccines and vaccination, and we're going to zero it down later on to the coronavirus vaccine in particular. We know that we have the coronavirus disease, COVID-19, as it now, which has taken many lives. And I think this used to be just heard of from a distance. We saw coronavirus as it started from China, Wuhan, around the end of 2019. And over a period of a year, it spread over to Europe, to Asia, to America, and Africa. And many people have died. Many people got sick, some got healed, but it has left a mark on the world which cannot be ignored. The devastating effects of the coronavirus can be felt from the medical front, by the many people that have died and the many health professionals that have been lost. It can be felt from the economic front, by many businesses that have closed. We actually know that life has changed. It is no longer life as we knew it. Now, words such as lockdown are very familiar to us, masking up, and sanitizing, social distancing. All these are new things that we were not used to in our day-to-day living. Scientists have engaged medical personnel to try and come up with a solution to the coronavirus. And as things stand, we have heard about the coronavirus vaccine. And there are many theories around it, conspiracy theories. There's a lot of research going on, news around that. But the question maybe is, what should we know about vaccines? Therefore, to speak to you about vaccines this evening is Daniel Kabana. Those are my names. The managing partner and CEO of DNK Group. I'm a pharmacist, and therefore it is from that background and expertise that I'm going to talk to you about vaccination, vaccines, and the coronavirus in general. So I will encourage that you share and invite and tag your friends so that equally and family they may benefit from the discussion that we are going to have. The question is, are vaccines safe? What are vaccines? What do they do when they get into your body? We have seen a lot of videos that tell us of people that have died this side, and people that have had adverse reactions and all these things. But what should you know about vaccines? So maybe let's begin by understanding what makes a vaccine. When you go to the hospital and you receive an injection, that injection could either be a medicine or it might be a vaccine. What is the difference between a medicine and a vaccine? A medicine is a product that has been formulated to fight disease or to restore the body to its normal function. That is a medicine. So it either fights disease or it restores the body to its normal function. That is a medicine. But in the medical circles, we actually don't call them medicines. We call them drugs. So if you're going to hear your doctor or pharmacist say a drug, we are not talking of cannabis or heroin or cocaine. We are actually talking about Panadol as you know it. We are talking about Amoxi. We call them drugs. They are all drugs. So how are drugs or medicines different from vaccines? While a medicine or a drug is a product that fights a disease directly or restores the normal physiological function of the body, a vaccine is a product that challenges the body so that the body can then fight against disease. So that needs to be very clear. Vaccines don't cure disease. Vaccines don't fight disease. Vaccines challenge the body so that the body can then fight the disease. Think of vaccines as whistleblowers. In an event that there is something that is happening, a whistleblower is going to communicate to the right wings. For example, a whistleblower may communicate with the military of an invasion by foreign soldiers. A whistleblower might inform the police about something that is happening, then the police will act. That is exactly how a vaccine works. A vaccine is a whistleblower. It informs the defense mechanism of the body that there is a pending invader, there is a foreign pathogen or germ, as you'd call them, that has gotten in the body, and therefore the body should fight back. So those are vaccines. Are vaccines new? No. Vaccines have been around for quite a long period of time, and now we have been dealing with vaccines for over 100 years. So vaccines are not new. They are actually diseases that have been wiped out from the face of the earth because of the use of vaccines. And there are many conditions in which vaccines have been used. For example, some of you have heard of the condition that used to be called smallpox. Smallpox was wiped out using vaccines. Chickenpox, equally, vaccines can be used in that. And some of you have heard of more recent conditions that have received a lot of publicity, such as cervical cancer. People can be protected against cervical cancer using vaccines. TB. We are all protected from TB by vaccination. And by the way, almost every one of us has got a little scar on their left arm. That little scar that you have on your left forearm is actually evidence that you received a vaccine called BCG when you were young. And that was a vaccination against tuberculosis. So vaccines have saved us from many conditions. Some of you have been vaccinated against yellow fever, especially for those of you who travel across borders. So you have to get a yellow fever vaccination for you to be allowed to travel across that way. So there are many conditions in which vaccines are used. Those of you who keep dogs, anytime that you are bitten by a dog and you are taken to the hospital, you would be given an anti-rabies. Anti-rabies is a vaccine against rabies. So those who have been saved from dog bites, it is vaccine. TB, vaccine. Cervical cancer, you have a vaccine for that. Yellow fever, you have a vaccine for that, and many other conditions for which you can be vaccinated, including such conditions as common flu and common cold, hepatitis. All these, we have vaccines for them. So vaccines are not very new. They have been around now for over 100 years, and they are used. And by the way, if you are alive now, chances are very high that you have received vaccines within your life. So let's take a little break, because now we understand what vaccines are, and after the break we'll come back and discuss how vaccines are made, what they constitute of. So we'll see you after the break. back. We continue to discuss vaccination, vaccines in general, but we are going to narrow it down to the coronavirus vaccine. This program is being brought to you by MedSearch, which is a medical directorate. There is no need of you now to go around looking for services. You can simply find all your health services on your phone. By simply downloading the MedSearch app, you will have access to a database of different institutions in terms of hospitals, clinics, pharmacies, laboratories, and many other health providers, including health personnel, that then you can easily have access to. So download the app so that you make your life easy and you make your access to healthcare efficient and effective. Simply search for MedSearch on, you can find that on the, you could actually install that on your phones, you can install that on your laptops or any other platform. Equally, you could download it either on your Apple gadgets or you could download that on your Android gadgets. So we continue with our discussion on vaccines. My name's Daniel Kabana, the CEO and managing partner of DNK Group. So we have already defined vaccines, what they do, and what differentiates them from medicines. We have also realized that vaccines have been around for quite some time, now over 100 years. And we have realized that you have used vaccines, I have used vaccines, and any other person out there. Now let's narrow it to how are vaccines manufactured. Now, vaccines are made by pharmaceutical companies. And I want to mention that there are quite hundreds upon hundreds of pharmaceutical companies. And a good number of these are into making of vaccines. I've already differentiated the vaccines from the medicines. But I should mention that on average, it takes a minimum of 10 years to develop a vaccine. So a vaccine is not really something that you get in the lab today and you have a vaccine next month. On average, it takes a minimum of 10 years to develop a vaccine. Actually, it can go to 20 years, sometimes 30 years, just to develop a vaccine. There are a number of stages that are involved in developing a vaccine or a medicine. And the first stage is what we call laboratory studies. This is where you sit in the lab and begin to think around the process of manufacturing, whether it's a molecule that you're bringing to the table or it's a virus and how you're going to handle it. Those studies take time. They may take a year, 2 or 3. And after that, you are going to go to what are called preclinical studies or animal studies. In animal studies, you are going to test then your product, which is a vaccine or a medicine. You're going to test it in animals. So you use animals such as mice, animals such as monkeys or dogs. And you're going to test your product. You're going to test it for a number of things, but mainly you test it for 2 things. That is called safety and efficacy. Okay, so safety is to ensure that the product does not cause harm to the recipient, who in this case, in the first instance, is an animal. And then you're going to test for efficacy. Efficacy is where you test whether the drug is effective and it is producing its intended effects. So that is efficacy and safety. When a drug, I should mention that at every stage of drug development or vaccine development, thousands of initial products fall off the shelf. You will begin with maybe 1,000 molecules that you are testing or products that you are testing. But when you come to the preclinical trials in animal studies, you realize that a number of them will either not be efficacious or they will be toxic. That means they will cause problems in the animal. And therefore they drop off. With the small number of products that you now have, you are going to proceed to what are called clinical trials. So the animal studies equally take about 3 years or so. Why? It is because we want to observe the immediate effects of the vaccine or the medicine on the animal and the long-term effects. because there are immediate effects of a drug and long-term effects of a drug or a vaccine. For example, one of the long-term effects of a drug, which we always want to check, is what we call teratogenicity. Teratogenicity is where you want to check whether a drug or a vaccine is going to affect the unborn babies or children. We have had instances in history where drugs that were not properly tested produced problems in the children. A very good example is a drug called thalidomide, which used to be used as an antiemetic. That is a drug that stops somebody from vomiting. And thalidomide used to be given in women to stop them from vomiting. But later on, over time, we realized that it was teratogenic. So it was having effects on unborn children, such that the children who would be born, some would not have arms, a condition called amalia. They would be born with maybe one eye or without legs, right? And that is how thalidomide was withdrawn from the market. But in its immediate testing, those long-term effects were not seen. And that is why sometimes you hear of products being recalled. It is where we tested the drugs, they were safe, but 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the line, you realize that the drug is not very safe. So that is why time is taken to do the preclinical trials in animals also, because at least for animals like mice, the gestational period, that means the time they take for them to be pregnant and give birth, is short. Which means if you give the drug, you can quickly see whether it has effects on the unborn babies. Now, from there, you're going to move to what are called clinical studies. Clinical studies is where you test the vaccine or the medicine, the drug, in human beings. And they are started on very small populations of maybe 25, 30 people, 50 volunteers. You are not forced to see how the drug works. If it proves to be efficacious and safe, you test on a larger population of, say, maybe 100 or so people. If it is effective, then you go to larger studies that are going to involve thousands of people, and you observe how they are faring on that drug. If it proves to be safe, then that is when it is going to be authorized for human use. This is the criteria that has been established by WHO and many other drug regulatory authorities to ensure the safety of people, so that when you receive your medicine or your vaccine, it is not a danger to you. So these are safety nets that have been created to ensure that the products you are getting actually will not harm you. And I want to mention that even there are quite a number of regulatory bodies that are there. You have WHO, and then you have one very renowned, which is the FDA, Food and Drug Administration of the United States of America. It is the leading regulatory authority, I think, world over. Here in Zambia, equally, we have a regulatory authority, and that is called ZAMRA, the Zambia Medicines and Allied Substance Regulatory Authority. So ZAMRA regulates drug development, drug distribution, and drug use, just to ensure that you are safe. And it has competent people within itself. ZAMRA, I think the main team there are pharmacists, highly qualified professionals who are there to ensure that the products that you receive will not harm you, but will actually be able to deal with the conditions that you have. So I want you to know that if a product is to come into Zambia, either a medicine or vaccine, it is going to pass through the Zambia Medicines Regulatory Authority, called ZAMRA, to check its efficacy, its potency, and its safety, to guarantee that people will not be harmed, but they will be cured or assisted by that medicine. Now, with this background, let's zero our discussion to COVID-19 vaccine. But before we do that, let's go for a break. Remember, this program is being brought to you by MedSearch, which is a medicine and health directory that you can download, and it will help you access health care effectively and efficiently. So see you after the break. welcome back from the break. Again, like I said, this program is being brought to you by MedSearch. It's a medical directory. If you download the app and have it on your phone, it allows you to have access to healthcare efficiently, quickly, and effectively. So it allows you to be able to access your medicines. It allows you to have access to hospitals, to laboratories, and all these other things. So get yourself that app. You can on Android, you can do so on your Apple products or your laptop or whatever other gadget that you actually have. Okay, so we have been discussing vaccination, and let us zero down our discussion now to COVID-19 vaccine. Now, talking about COVID-19 vaccine, by the way, I should mention that there is not one vaccine. So whenever you hear about COVID-19 vaccine, do not think there is one vaccine that is called COVID-19 vaccine. There are, as at now, 56 pharmaceutical companies that are researching on COVID-19 vaccine development. And they have developed these 56 different pharmaceutical companies. As at now, they have about 126 leading vaccines that are being developed. And of these, 3 are in a very advanced stage, and we know of one that has been authorized by the FDA, though 3 really have been authorized. And the one that seems to be leading as at now, which distribution has started in the US out there, which are being developed for coronavirus. I want you to know that we have different types of vaccine. And the type of a vaccine is determined by what is used to make that vaccine. We have what are called live attenuated vaccines. Live attenuated vaccines are vaccines where we get a live bacteria or a live virus and weaken it. After weakening it, we inject it in your body. We inject it in your body and your body is going to detect it. The soldiers are going to detect it because it is in your body. Remember, it is weak, so it can't cause disease. And therefore, your body will mount an immune response so that the time that you are going to have an infection, it will not cause disease. Those are live attenuated vaccines. Okay? Then we also have vaccines that are called inactivated vaccines. Inactivated vaccines is where we get a bacteria or we get a virus and we completely kill it. We can do so by many methods, including heat. We kill it and it is no longer alive. We introduce it into your body will mount an immune response against it. So those are inactivated vaccines. We have vaccines that are made from what we call viral-like particles. Viral-like particles. This is where we get some molecules that almost behave or would look like a virus, and when we get these, we inject them in you, your body will mount a response against that. Then there are also vaccines that the vaccine is going to be coming into you, the virus into you, the body will be ready to fight. So these are some of the basic types of vaccines. Then we have what we call recombinant vaccines. These are vaccines that are created using some of the latest technology, DNA technology, where we get some bacteria or yeast cells, and then we collect a gene from a virus or a bacteria, inject it in this other bacteria so that it can begin to manufacture a vaccine against the first one. Okay? And then I'll end with, on these vaccines, I'll end with what is called mRNA vaccine, because this is the technology that is being introduced. Okay, so we are going to go for a break, and when we come back from that break, I'll zero in on mRNA vaccine, because that is the type of vaccine you are likely to receive if you are going to get a vaccine against the coronavirus. What is it? What does it do? How safe is it? Can you get it or not? So see you after the break. We'll be back soon. It's good to have you on this platform this evening. Remember, this program is being brought to you by MedSearch Zambia, which is an online health directory. This app should be able to simplify life for you in terms of access to health care. That means if you have it, you can easily search and find out which hospital is closest to you, which pharmacy is near you, which lab is near you, which physio center is near you. And equally, the app will tell you what of the services or products they stock. That in itself is going to simplify your life where healthcare is concerned. So I'm going to encourage you to search for MedSearch on your Google Play Store, and you should be able to download that app and it will help you where healthcare is concerned. You could have access on your phone or on your laptop or any other gadget. We have been discussing vaccines, and my names are Daniel Kabana, the CEO and managing partner of DNK Group. I'm speaking to you this evening as a pharmacist to share information and sensitize you around vaccination, vaccines in general, and more especially coronavirus vaccines. So now I'm going to zero down our discussion to the mRNA vaccine, which is the vaccine that you're likely going to receive if you are going to choose to receive it. So mRNA technology is very new. When I say very new, it is because in medical terms, something that is as recent as 10, 15, 20 years is new. But mRNA technology has been used, actually, has been developed beginning around the 1980s. So it is over 20 years now that this technology has been developed. This is where you develop a product that is going to go and instruct the body cells to begin behaving in a certain way. Now, let me mention that RNA is nucleic material. RNA is actually ribonucleic acid. We have DNA, which is deoxyribonucleic acid. So DNA and RNA are genetic materials. Now, a cell is, from your biology in high school, you learned that a cell is the smallest living unit. If we got you, divided you into half, then divided your half into half, and that half into half, and we continue with the process, the smallest living entity that we're going to find is called a cell. Okay, so a cell can live even alone, and within itself it has an organization of the central command system, which is called the nucleus, and many other things in there. Now, what makes the cell to behave the way it behaves and to continue living? It is because it is carrying genetic material. That genetic material has things that are called genes. And these genes that sit on the genetic material are the ones that begin to tell the cell how to behave. For example, your cells carry within themselves genetic material called DNA, and it is that DNA that commands your cells to say you should have the complexion that you have, the height that you have, the color of eyes that you have. All this is controlled by the genetic material, and that genetic material is called DNA. There's another genetic material called RNA. Now, what is mRNA, which is called messenger RNA? This is genetic material that is normally moving by command from the nucleus to the part of the cell where proteins and other things are produced. In other words, mRNA carries instructions from the central command system within the cell to other parts of the cell to instruct them on what to make, whether it is proteins or enzymes and other different things. Now, how is this technology being used in vaccination? For now, to do with the coronavirus is this virus. By the way, the word corona is a Latin word that means crown. So when you hear coronavirus, it's because when you look at the coronavirus in a microscope, it looks like a crown, corona, right? It has these little spikes on it that look like the spikes that would be on a crown. That is why it is called corona, crown virus. Coronavirus is not new. We have always had coronaviruses of different types. Majority of the coronaviruses do not cause disease, but a number of them can cause disease. For example, we had a coronavirus outbreak coming from Asia and the Middle East that was called SARS. And we had another coronavirus which was called MERS. And these actually also killed people. They were coronaviruses. Now we have this new type of coronavirus which we have now, and it has these little spikes on it. These spikes that the coronavirus has, we have come to realize from the scientific point of view that they are the ones that are normally recognized by your body immune system. Remember what I told you about how your body would recognize something. So the spikes that are on the coronavirus are the ones that sells off the coronavirus to the immune system of your body. Now, the mRNA technology, which is being used to make the vaccine that has been made now, which is the popular vaccine you're talking about, is where mRNA is generated by getting one gene from the coronavirus, which is the gene that codes for the spike proteins that are found on the coronavirus. Then when you get that gene and incorporate it in the mRNA, when it gets into your body, it does not go to the DNA, it goes into the cell. And it commands the cell to begin producing the spike proteins the same way that the coronavirus has spike proteins. And therefore, your body will begin to think that you have been infected with the coronavirus, and your body will begin to fight against coronavirus, and yet you don't have the coronavirus. You only have the spike proteins, which are similar to the spike proteins that are found on the coronavirus. So, this, as going by the medical knowledge that we have as at now, this kind of technology to do with vaccination is thought to be the safest kind of technology. Because remember the other viruses, the other vaccines that we give, for example, BCG in TB, we actually give you the TB bacteria, only that we have weakened it. But in the mRNA technology, based technology of vaccination, we don't give you a virus, we don't give you a bacteria, you are given mRNA, which is going to go and reproduce a behavior such as if you have an infection, and then your body is going to fight against that infection. So that the time that you're going to have an infection which is real, your body would have been ready. Has this technology ever been used in human beings? No, it has not been used. So this vaccine that has been created using mRNA technology, it will be the first of its kind to be used in human beings. It has been used in animal studies before, but in human beings it is the first. Is it currently being given? Yes, it is being given in some of the countries like the US, the UK, and a number of European countries. When it is given, does it produce problems? Now I should mention that the two companies that are behind this vaccine, which is Pfizer and BioNTech, when they made this vaccine, they ran a clinical trial that involved over 34,000 people across the world, from the US, from Europe, from China, from Asia, and including Africa. There were 2 sites where they were testing this vaccine in South Africa. And of those 34,000 people that were tested, there were no deaths that were recorded in line with the vaccine. There are some deaths that were recorded which were few, I think about 6, but those deaths were in line or could be tied to other things other than the vaccine. So there were no deaths that were recorded, but there are a few adverse reactions that were recorded in people. And these adverse reactions that were recorded were not fatal adverse reactions. Adverse reactions are the things more like side effects of a drug or a medicine that you may not want. So a number of those were recorded, but none of them were of concern, of fatal concern. Now, why I should mention that is because I want you to know that every drug, just like every medicine, has got side effects and a possibility of producing adverse effects. So viruses equally have got vaccines also have a possibility of producing adverse effects. Okay? What are adverse effects? Adverse effects are unexpected and unwanted side effects of a drug. Okay? So maybe let me pick on just a few of the comments that have come through. Mr. Adron, I don't know whether this is Mr. or Miss, but Adron was asking to say, when you are developing a vaccine, I have highlighted to you about the protocol that is followed, and I've told you that the process normally would take a minimum of 10 years. The question is, to do with this coronavirus, we have seen coronavirus come and now it's just about a year and we already have a vaccine. How come we have the vaccine in 1 year and yet it would normally take 10 years? It is because this vaccine technology is being based on a technology that was being developed over years. Remember, I told you that coronaviruses are not new. We have been hit by 2 epidemics before of the coronavirus, which was the SARS and the MERS. Right? So scientists in the background have been developing vaccines against the coronaviruses. And what they have done as it now is just to adapt that technology to this strain of the coronavirus that we have now. That is why the process has been shortened. Secondly, WHO in its protocols of drug development and vaccine development allows for fast tracking of the processes in an event of a pandemic, especially if it is fatal, for the fear that the benefit outweighs the risk. I should mention that whenever we develop drugs, we actually do what is called a risk-benefit analysis. So if you realize that the benefit is likely to be more than the risk, you may actually fast track some of the processes. So the question is, has the coronavirus vaccine been fast-tracked? Yes, it has been fast-tracked. What is the justification for this? I guess the regulators were looking at the issue of risk-benefit analysis. So this vaccine, which is out there, is given, and it is given twice. You get 2 shots, the first one and you get the second one after 2 months, and that should be able to build immunity against you. Now, there are things I want you to know. Can we then guarantee that the vaccine is safe or it is not safe? Well, the vaccine can be guaranteed to be safe only to the extent that we have seen its effects. For now, I can say the studies that have been done on the vaccine are less than 6 months old. It means in the 6 months period that studies have been done on the vaccine and tested in human beings, yes, we can guarantee that it is safe. But we cannot guarantee its long-term effects. Those will only be known with time. After 5 years, after 10 years, we may get to know whether this vaccine has got long-term effects that may be bad or good on human beings. So we can't guarantee the long-term effects as of now, but the short-term can be guaranteed by the studies that have been done. Well, on the internet, it has also been, some of you have read that those who received the vaccine in Norway, some old people who received the vaccine in Norway actually died. Is that true or not? Yes, it is true. For those old people, they actually died. The question is, why maybe did they die? Now, I should mention that, remember, when we give you a vaccine, we are challenging your immune system to respond. Vaccines normally don't work very well in very old people because the the storm that comes by the body responding to the vaccine sometimes can overwhelm the body and lead to adverse reaction that can actually be fatal. So yes, there's been times that people have died from vaccination. That is the truth when you look through medical history and vaccination. There are people that have died. But the people that have died from vaccine normally have been fewer than the people who have been saved by vaccine and who could have died if they had not been vaccinated. So even for vaccines, for people that have got histories of allergies, they need to be careful before they take a vaccine because they carry within them a high risk or a potential of reacting adversely when they receive vaccination. That is why even when you go to the hospital, there are certain medicines we don't give you all at once. We first challenge your body to see how you will respond. If you respond very well, then we can give you a higher dose. Somebody says, do we really need vaccines in Zambia? Well, it is not the case of Zambia in particular. Maybe it is the case of, do we really need vaccines in Zambia? Let's narrow it to Zambia. The first wave of the coronavirus did not seem to affect us very much. We actually started thinking that the coronavirus does not affect blacks. But this second wave of the coronavirus is real and very serious. I think most of you that are on social media, you have realized that the people that are now dying are familiar faces of either friends, relatives, church members, or workmates. So we need to take the coronavirus very seriously. If the trajectory continues as it is with the rising cases of the coronavirus, I would say that maybe we need the vaccine. But also it is not just an issue of whether we need the vaccine in Zambia. It is possible for you to get an infection and not be sick, but transmit it to another person who is immunocompromised or who is predisposed to that condition, and they may die. So vaccination is not merely for yourself. It is also for other people. You have seen that just on this coronavirus, 2 people in the same home can go to the hospital, one who tests positive, one who tests negative. So it is not just merely for yourself, it is also for other people. But what should justify whether we need it or not is the toil of how the coronavirus is affecting us. Remember again, like I've said, this program is being brought to you by MedSearch Zambia, which is a medical directory, and this directory should be able to help you access your medical care in terms of services and products quite easily. It will tell you the hospital nearest to you, the pharmacy nearest to you, the lab nearest to you, so that you can easily access your health care. Equally, it will provide you with information that you may need. So this program is being brought to you by MedSearch Zambia, and speaking to you today is Daniel Kabana, the CEO and managing partner of GNK Group, coming to you as a pharmacist. I know most of you are used to hearing from me to do with business and other things. So today we are talking about the coronavirus vaccine. Okay, so where are we as Zambia currently on the coronavirus and vaccination? So as Zambia, you heard very well the ministerial statements that have been made by our minister and equally our president. The president was very categorical on this. Your fears should not be alerted. The president made it very clear that if we are to get a vaccine, equally it should undergo trials. Do we have capacity? Yes and no, depending at what level we are testing the vaccine. We may not have capacity to test the vaccine at molecular elucidation level. We have no capacity to test at maybe laboratory studies, but we have capacity to test the vaccine at clinical trial levels. And within this pyramid of testing, the most important are the clinical trials, which we as Zambians are equipped and can be able to do. We have men and women that are seasoned in this science to be able to do that. And where are we? Have we ordered the vaccines? Not yet. As at now, the directive that came from the president and from our minister is that the ministry is engaging stakeholders to decide on whether we need this vaccine and how we should get it if we are to get it, and then they'll give a directive on how it should be used. This information should be able to help you make an informed decision in the event that we get the coronavirus vaccine as a country.
The medicines Zambia up. Everywhere you go, there's a nearest health provider. You don't need to stress, cause you got it on your fingertips. Download